Hey kids, how's it going? Happy Monday. I hope you all had a fun weekend, got to go play outside and enjoyed time with your families. I sure miss you. Wish that I could see all of you guys. We're hoping to start virtual learning possibly next week, and maybe I'll get to see some of your faces via the computer. But until then, we're just going to continue to read together. So today we're going to read She Dared, Malala Yousafzai, chapter 4. So what do you guys think is going on so far in our story? So we've talked about the fact that this is a nonfiction story. Malala Yousafzai is a real girl. She's still alive. Later on in the book, we'll find out more about what happens in the end of the story, and then also just some acknowledgments and things that she's gotten since the story was written. But right now, what have you come up with? What do you think is going to happen in the story? We'll talk, right? Okay. Chapter 4, I Am Afraid. Remember, she was approached by a journalist that was working for a TV news channel and asked to be possibly one that was chosen to write a journal about her experience. So what's happening with her school possibly closing and the scary things that are happening with her family and the bombing. So she, let's see if she decides to be brave and be part of that experience. All right, number 4, chapter 4, I Am Afraid. Writing this diary could be very dangerous, the correspondent told Malala over the phone. So we can't use your real name. Malala sat on her bed and clutched her mom's cell phone to her ear. A fake name? Malala asked. I'm just a child. Who would attack a child? There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Malala stared at her white walls. She didn't have much furniture in her room, only a bed and a desk. Okay then, the correspondent said. Consider your father. Your diary could put him in harm's way. Malala swallowed. The scary part was her father already received threats from the Taliban. The radio mullah had spoken his name and not in a congratulatory way. Some nights her father slept at a friend's house to keep the Taliban away from his family, just in case. Other nights her father didn't come home until midnight, after he was done with his many anti-Taliban groups and committees. So remember, her dad is also, he's a teacher, right? And so he's actually also speaking out against the Taliban. So he's doing things that could put himself in danger, so he's hiding from the Taliban as well. Malala's one-story home had a small yard in the front and another in the back. A tall stone wall surrounded it all. Within the wall was a gate with a door. On the nights when her father slept at home, she'd run outside, a shawl around her for warmth, and double-check the door's locks. In the backyard, Malala's mom had an idea to lean a ladder against the wall so her father could quickly climb the ladder and jump over the wall to the street if anyone came for him. Yes, Malala said to the correspondent. I better use a fake name. Malala would write as Gul Mackay, borrowing the name from a little girl of great honor from a Pashtun folk story. Pashtun was an ethnic group composed of nearly 400 tribes. Yousafzai, Malala's family name, was one of those tribes. In the story, Gul Mackay falls in love with a boy named Musa Khan from a different tribe. Their love causes a war between the two tribes, but Gul Mackay only wants peace. So the character story, the character that she chose to use as her fake name also wants peace. So think about the fact that Malala chose somebody's name to use that she also can identify with, somebody who wants peace, right? And that's what Malala wants for her family. Eventually, they had listened, and the fighting stops. Gul Mackay is able to be with the boy she loves, despite being from different tribes. Malala imagined Gul Mackay must have been very frightened during all the fighting and at the thought of losing Musa Khan. Malala was frightened too. She was scared of the fighting. She was scared of losing her father, her family, her school, her future. Malala's first diary entry was titled, I Am Afraid. But she wasn't sure how to put her thoughts into words. The correspondent said he'd help her. Each night he'd call Malala and they'd talk. after he'd write up what Malala told him and post it in both English and Urdu on the BBC website. Malala was eager to start, but also nervous. The correspondent wanted to hear a mix of her life at home and also the terror of the Taliban. "Tell me about your day," he said, prompting her. She held the phone tightly against her ear. "Well, there was a moment today that almost caused my heart to stop. I was walking home from school. Behind me, a man growled, 'I will kill you.' I walked faster and faster, then after a while, I looked over my shoulder. I have to do that a lot. To my relief, I saw he was talking on his mobile. He wasn't threatening me, he was threatening somebody else." Malala heard the correspondent's shaky exhale. These types of threats were too common. "What else has been going on where you live?" She bit her lip and thought of all the explosions. A few weeks back, they had lost electricity when Taliban bombed the power station. For a time, they had lost access to clean water. It caused an outbreak of the disease called cholera. The hospitals overflowed and had to erect tents on the streets. It was horrible. To the correspondent, she said, "I often have nightmares. I've had them for the past year, ever since the fighting began. I can hear helicopter propellers and their gunfire. I can hear the Taliban's bombs. And what do you do when you wake up?" "I eat breakfast and I go to school. School is my haven, except now the Taliban says they will close it in just 10 days. Malala's second diary entry was titled, "I Have to Go to School." A new entry was published every day for two. At school, people started talking about the diary. People started talking about it seemingly everywhere. Malala liked the praise and she was so badly wanted to shout, "It's me, I'm Gul Mackay." But she remembered the correspondent's warnings. So none of her friends or family, outside of family, knew that Malala was the one that was doing this news diary. Malala had seen what the Taliban could do. They'd kill many people. Even writing with a pen name was dangerous, but Malala was determined to speak out against the Taliban and add more entries to her diary. On the day before winter break, Malala's sixth diary entry was published. This one was called, "I May Not Go to School Again." Malala had hoped the diary would somehow get someone to change their minds about the girls' school remaining closed after winter break, but no one was doing anything. Malala was devastated. So were her parents. They sacrificed a lot and worked very hard to open her father's first school. It was his dream ever since he was a boy, and it hadn't been easy. Malala's family was once very poor, and starting a school cost a lot of money. But they did it, and when the time came to get students to enroll, her father climbed up electricity poles, his arms and legs shaking because he was scared of heights, and hung banners advertising the school. After his first school became successful, he opened more. Now he had a total of 3. An elementary school for boys and girls, a girls-only school, and a school for boys. Boys and girls over the age of 10 weren't allowed to go to school together. Now the school for girls, Malala School, would be closed tomorrow. Malala would be without a classroom, and her family would be without the income from the school. A documentary filmmaker from the New York Times asked her father if they could record the school's last day, the night before he came to Malala's home. Malala and her father sat side by side on the carpet, and the documentary filmmaker focused a camera on them. Though Malala was nervous, she and her father started to tell their story. Malala wondered aloud, how can they stop more than 50,000 girls from going to school in the 21st century? But you are going to stop going?